Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief Recap. Wow, what a crazy market we're in, eh? Yesterday, actually, maybe we should wait for YouTube to kick in here just to make sure it's working. Investor.com. Hey, it is. So yesterday was all about risk off, gold, bonds, yen jumping up, stocks, oil coming off, Bitcoin can't figure out what it wants to do, pressing lower. And then with one wave of the magic wand, boom, now we're back into risk on. So whole market jumped right back up here this morning. Stocks jumped, even Bitcoin caught a bit. Imagine that. Things all over the place. Spent a lot of time in the daily brief today talking about trade setups and how those setups failed, but more importantly, tracking mistakes. And unfortunately, in crypto, if you like to sleep, that could be problematic. Last night, they put a bottom in Bitcoin through the London kill zone, and it literally went straight up through that. But I suppose we'll talk about that in a bit. So, all right, quick look at our regular rags here that I like to do for you guys. Try and illustrate sort of broader market perspective. That's kind of what these quick 10-15 minute videos are supposed to be. So what do I see out of currency land? We kind of talked about this recently. They just washed these highs on the US dollar index. That was like euro crapping out there, and then instantly counter trend rally to go and wash these lows. And notice we were even talking about a little bit yesterday. We said there was a bit of a tail, but no, here, there you go. Now that's a nice FU move. So they just FU'd both sides of this small trading range, and I noticed things like remember we had euro short ideas that we were thinking about there the other day. They were sort of told to get out at scratch. That was this trade. And in essence, we never did get the move stop to trailing level hit, but move stop to scratch, so boom, get out of there. And if you hadn't, of course, boom, you got bitch slapped. We also saw, and actually this surprised me, but nonetheless, it is a trader's life. But we had things like the British pound ratchet up here and bust through the highs, broke the happy face, and basically long and short of it here is if you had shorted this, basically you were told, sorry, you're wrong, gotta get out. So that's kind of the situation that I see here, extremely choppy. And if anything, seeing this US dollar index, and we were kind of talking about this in the daily brief, one of the recent site members sort of mentioned this too, that higher time frames, we're not getting anything really crystal clear setting up, and very choppy locations. And you can see that on currencies, stopwatch, par for the course, within huge, broader market ranges, and just sort of business as usual. Let's wash these weak hands, which I sort of see, like if you're trading off like 4-hour charts and stuff like that, that's what's going to happen. Risk on, risk off, like I said just a moment ago. I mean, just a crazy stock market state. You can see, and I don't know, has Bitcoin now gone back into correlation? I don't know. We'll see what happens here. But actually interesting to see some uppy action here out of this spot Bitcoin market. Interesting too to see the oil pushing up and breaking through the highs, and some of the oil stocks that I've bought recently and a few of the names we were kicking around we talked about in the daily brief today, looking really, really good here. Never did get stopped out on that GPOR that I bought, so still hanging in there, and it gapped higher today. So, been worried about what does the end of this face rip insane uppy market look like, and we talked lots about that in the daily brief today. I still kind of think that this boom, boom, boom trend line tag into December 24th is not unrealistic. To get sort of a move up into these levels, this AB equals CD, I thought we'd pull back here, but you notice yesterday on the gap open, all they did was create just a big hammer bar, and here we are ratcheting back up. Now, kind of like just like the British pound, do we get an actual trade setup idea that comes in where we can sort of quantify our risks? I'm going to be watching for M's up against this high, and we looked at this on the NASDAQ as well. There's still cheeky little gaps right up top here that look very suspicious. So again, just insane volatility all over the place. Not little happy face, polite M's to short here yet. Just nothing really crystallized. And again, same sort of thing on Bitcoin. I mean, we're not really getting clean formations. Just insane price volatility. And I wonder whether it's a function of this 1 year anniversary on the market's move. Panic dump last Christmas, a euphoric peak this Christmas. And it's interesting. On a side note, did hear lots of sort of market commentators saying that if this Trump impeachment stuff fails, then basically Trump's going to be like king of the United States, because this is two now whacks at trying to knock him down that will land flat on their face. The Democrats are going to look like idiots. So fascinating to see. Can't write better fiction than reality. And if I was going to paint a market top, I would want it to look something like this, where the public is just left baffled by this price action, because it is all over the map right now. And of course, Jupiter-Saturn crosses, Saturn-Pluto crosses, end of 16 or 17 and a half year fear cycle, transition into new millennium generational cycles. Should the end of this market look like an absolute mess? Sounds good to me. So anyway, point of the matter here, we haven't really gotten any firm breakdown on stocks. They're ratcheting back up. We'll see what happens. Oil pressing back up against the highs. That Saudi Aramco deal still coming down the pike, and I still think they want to keep energy prices up into that. We'll see what happens. Bond prices did rally back up to trend lines, but you can see now starting to waffle again, and maybe even potentially putting an inside bar failures on the weeklies. And the gold, our old buddy, the gold. I did pick up a little bit of gold stock here recently, and I don't know whether I showed you guys on the public broadcast, but I do own a whack of gold and metal stocks. A lot of these are what I call VCIM, venture cap investment model. They're based on, share rollbacks, options to director, shares for debt, that kind of stuff. There was sort of an intermediate that I picked up here recently at like 81, sitting basically within this range. Nothing really solid breakout-wise has happened here. I don't see anything to get too excited about on this screen. But we were watching the big boys and things like Barrick and stuff. Barrick did break out through that clothesline level there of 2263. Did it with an insane gap and huge shooting star. That's not really what you want to see from a healthy bull. But nonetheless, we do have a W on the other side of trend lines working on Barrick, and you can see they're actually coming back to fill the gap in now. So if you are interested in Barrick, we're actually coming back down into what I would consider a half-decent level to take your shot. We talked about Newmont. They would like to have their sort of status as the world's biggest gold corporation back. And how do you do that? Of course, it's market cap. So how do you get your market cap up? Announce a big fat share buyback program. And I think my hunch is we're probably going to see Newmont head up into this 47 area down the road. The only problem here is I don't really have a W to work with, so kind of like Barrick needs to pull back, fill in the gap. I think I'd like to see this guy calm down a little bit before I get too excited. And you can see that's sort of like a AB equals CD. If I can get a nice little pullback into the notch here over the next few weeks, kind of idea, if oil and stocks continue to face rip up, then I might take a serious look at some calls here on Newmont, because I'm feeling like that cycle has turned now. And really the gold and silver market should do okay into sort of early next year on balance. Okay, so that's sort of your risk on, risk off. I do like gold, but if the market does go risk on, does go absolutely parabolic nuts up, I could see this actually weaken a bit. And of course, like I said, I actually do have some puts on in the bonds, so I'm just sort of sitting there pretty. We did have our TRI SOF meeting last night. Had a bunch of names that we were sort of kicking around, ideas, and hopefully what you see is a reoccurring theme. We hunt basically the bottom ends of trading ranges, seeing if we can sneak in on the cheap. And one name, I'm super jazzed about the pharma sector recently, but one name that was a new name that came up on the list is VTVT. So do your due diligence, take a look at it. I'm not telling you what to do with your money, but I'm telling you what I'm going to do with my money. So, obviously, when you look at that kind of trading range, is there any kind of room for exploration up top here? I think so. So, and then also, too, this is kind of cool. I've been interested in this Java. You can see the chart, bottom end of the range, rinse and repeat, broken record, big old gap up top. And we were looking at coffee before we got going with the daily brief today, just out of curiosity. What's coffee doing? I don't know what the hell coffee's doing. And you look at coffee and it looks beautiful. Woohoo! Now that's what I call a bull market. So that's a weekly price chart too. I don't know. Can you see a weekly W there? So I love the idea of my little coffee stock. So really shouldn't surprise coffee stock looking a little better off its double bottom. So again, I like the structure of this. I actually like the consumer beverages sector. I'm long that David's tea as well. So actually I do have 2 different consumer beverage stocks on the books. I like it. Moving on over to crypto, I talked to you guys recently about being short, and basically yesterday the report was I was short. Try not to inject any opinion, just live with the setup, yada yada yada. So spent a lot of time yesterday. I even put a tweet saying, oh man, I thought I was going to get run out here, but I was patient and disciplined. I was exceedingly pleased to see that my move stopped to scratch level was hit, so I can't get hurt on this trade now. And through London kill zone, we noticed that they took the market to new lows. So I was, going to bed thinking, all right, well, everything looks fine. Thought I had changed my stop to scratch, and you can even see I had alarms on TradingView and everything set. And, should this trade have gone against me, I should have been stopped out, right? I basically scratch. Woke up this morning, looked at the alarms, and you can see that the alarms went off, but didn't get any audio alerts that I was expecting, so didn't really be notified something happened. And I looked at my Bybit screen, and it said you were stopped out at 74.63 or something like that. I was like, oh, great, wonderful. So it just goes to show anybody, anytime is susceptible to making mistakes. It happens. And if anything, I'm sure a lot of trolls and stuff are going to look at these videos and go, this guy's, he can't trade out of a paper bag. Well, if anything, I've tried to say to the site people that I wanted to be the demonstrator of best practices. I really wasn't in this to win the competition. We are having a long chat on the site this morning about how this competition's kind of a little bit suspect. Somebody found a way that algorithms can kind of take advantage of it. So, competition aside, what I really wanted to do was just demonstrate, best practices. And so, actually, I spent a lot of time today in the daily brief, and I think this is actually good value. A lot of people watching me talk about this actually felt like it was. But, everybody's susceptible to making mistakes, and how are you going to deal with making those mistakes to get rid of the mistakes? And these are 2 documents that we have on the TRI site. This one I got from a guy named Dr. Bob. What the hell was his last name? But anyway, he used to come and talk to us at the old prop firm I used to work for about dealing with mistakes. So he gave us this document. And then also, too, there's this document was floating out online. There's a few people. We've kind of made some adjustments to this document. So it's a question of, is it a setup failure or is it a behavioral failure? And basically, I demonstrated to everyone that I'm not nearly as crisp as I thought I was, kind of a sloppy trade in here. I was pleased that I obeyed my risk threshold and walked away, because it clearly the long idea was not right. So that was good. But could this have been maybe a little bit better setup to trade? I think so. So, that would go under. And, like I said, through the daily brief, I basically said I got to get filling out my mistake finders. I think you can make the argument that, market structure mistake could fall under this sort of category. And then this one here, this was just, interestingly enough, this had nothing to do with setups. This was all about process and how I just simply fucked up the stop loss order, which is another very typical trader mistake, something along here, incorrect stop placement. So, they're not the same mistakes, but the key with this document is trying to figure out if there are any patterns to be your behavior. And then also, too, if you write down, I'm making mistakes because I didn't correctly enter that stop, I'm going to make darn sure that the next time I got like 2 or 3 stop orders and I got 4 alarms and I got 5 different alerts going rather than just one. Because I don't want to see that I'm making the same mistake repeatedly. So that's what I did in the daily brief today. Fun, joy. The good part about it for a guy like me is I'm just an open book. I would rather just give you guys the straight goods rather than blow smoke up your butt. But even on the site today, and I do a little journal. In fact, we have this function on the site, which I think is really cool. And just walk through the site. Everybody can look and see sort of my journal mistake log entries and, what happened. So anyway, that is my Bitcoin experience. I'll tell you, I don't think I'm going to win this competition. That's for sure. And I'm just going to keep on keeping on. But I think actually the most important thing that came out of this morning, after I did all the journaling, I wrote up the trade logs, sort of identified what I did wrong and stuff. At least after that, I wasn't suspect to sort of revenge trading. Because quite often happens is now I don't have a setup. There's nothing really working for me right now. So the best thing I think I should do is just leave this alone. And let new M's and W's form, etc., etc. But also, too, I thought this was really interesting. So the journaling process and acknowledging the mistakes and filling out those logs and all that kind of stuff, at least it slows you down and it stops you from revenge trading. But also, too, what I wanted to kind of mention was I think this is a really interesting commentary on market state. I know I've been talking a really long time. Actually, yeah, we're coming up on sort of borderline. So I'm going to leave the conversation at that today. I do like the idea that market is trying to find bottoms. And I just simply wanted to, when I said market state, the fact that we were, V bottoming and then ratcheting up and then M topping means that it's a bear. But at the same time, too, the fact that they're running stops. And I noticed, like on OKCoin, they ran the stops up top here. But they didn't in the cash market. They ran the stops on Bitcoin futures. But they still left this gap actually pretty open. So I don't have a setup right now. Got a lot of conflicting messages. I do find it interesting that its original Head and Shoulders trade thesis is actually still working. So I'm thinking up, believe it or not. But at the same time, too, I don't have a setup. So really, there's nothing for me to do here right now. I just got to sort of cool my jets, journal, and commit to the process. I'll just finish off with just a quick thought about, like this sort of market state. I had originally talked, I remember I had said to you guys that if we did actually turn this weekly candle green, that we should see a pop up top. And gee whiz, we got the pop. We still haven't resolved this 38.2. So I'm not really at the point where higher time frames weekly participants, this is a bull, we got to buy it. It's in the process of bottoming, and it's in the process, too, of flushing out the weak hands, the guys who are trying to day trade, swing trade kind of stuff. I see a lot of that right now. But at the same time, too, if you can build a plan, we used to like to call it the SFU, Sebastian FU setups, where he just simply shorts new highs and sells new lows, shorts news highs and buys news lows, if you can say that 10 times fast. Maybe you might have had something set up through there. But for me, I didn't have anything. So, but I'll finish off this. Here's yet another example. And somebody actually banged off a really nice win here this morning on TRI, which I was very pleased to see. But it's just yet another example of what I kind of think is sort of this market state where, we're not at the top of the market anymore, right? And this just happens to be one idea, this ENJ. We're not in this kind of market state. We did put in nice W's in this kind of coin, for example. Then we have big face rib moves up, and then the distribution. And here we are right back down against the lows. You can see it across a whole bunch of these alts. There's one guy on, spent some time in the daily brief reviewing some ideas. One gentleman, I think his name is Crypto Chico or something like that. He's really jazzed about things like Enigma and RLC, and I think Chainlink to a certain degree. I can't chase Chainlink, but RLC definitely in a longer term buying zone. And this ENG, really good looking chart, basically in a buying zone in my opinion. And ironically enough, if we actually look at Ethereum, and if I understand correctly, the ENG and the RLC kind of are leveraging Ethereum, we can make the argument that, she sure looks like she's coming down against original structure and coming down into reload zones and all that. And just your final thought here is, if you want a sort of historical context, go look at what Ethereum likes to do through the end of the year. So I'll leave the video at that, kind of a fun teaser. That should sort of, this image right here should kind of align with that. So I kind of like where we are here in crypto. And we're coming into this end of the cycle, Saturn, Pluto cross. Stock market's acting very, very wonky. Politics, absolute mess right now. No leadership. Sounds like a perfect time for crypto to put in a bottom and take over. Okay, guys, have yourselves a great day. I'm off to class now. All the best, and bye for now.